Papa, wake up! Please, you cannot leave me. I have no mother, I cannot lose you too.
You're about to hear a story that carries the heart of Africa. Subscribe to African Folktales by MaC-Anison TV, where every week we share rarest African folktales you won't find anywhere else. Your subscription is the fuel that inspires us to bring you the very best of our storytelling heritage. The village of Iya was a land where the earth spoke in whispers, and the wind carried the secrets of generations. It was a village where laughter often echoed from compound to compound, where the moonlight played on the rooftops like a faithful storyteller, and where every family boasted of their children as treasures from the gods. Yet, beneath the fragrance of roasted yam and the chants of evening drummers, there lingered a shadow, a silence that lived in the home of Mr. Okoro and his wife Oloma. They had been married for 10 long years. 10 harvest seasons had come and gone, yet no cry of a child had ever blessed their hearth. The villagers, in their ignorance and superstition, branded them cursed. They whispered in corners, spat bitter words under their breath, and some even refused to share meals with them, as though their supposed misfortune were a disease. A tree without fruit, they said, is firewood in waiting. But within that home, there was no curse. There was love, an unshakable love, the kind that made others envy them in secret. Mr. Okoro, a proud hunter and farmer, was a man of strength and honor. His wife, Oloma, sold farm produce at the bustling village market on market days, her laughter once bright enough to draw customers in. They weren't rich, but they had enough. Food to eat, a roof to shield them from the storms, and a bond that made them inseparable. They were, in truth, richer than many, for they had what gold could not buy: companionship. And yet, one thing remained missing: a child. A small voice to call them Mama and Papa. Without that, the villagers saw them as incomplete, as broken pottery. In time, those same villagers withdrew, calling them bad luck. Some even pressed Mr. Okoro to remarry, for a man without children is like a river without fish, wide but empty. That evening, as the setting sun draped the horizon in a golden blaze and shadows lengthened across the earth, Oloma sat quietly outside their hut. She stared at the horizon, her thoughts drowning in sorrow. The once joyous sparkle in her eyes was dimmed, her laughter swallowed by the sharp tongues of gossipers. She heard footsteps, the familiar firm tread of her husband returning from the forest. The smell of dust and dried leaves trailed after him, along with the faint musk of animal fur. Oloma, my wife, you are welcome. How was your day at the market? He asked warmly, his voice carrying the steady strength of a man content with life's simple offerings. Oloma forced a smile but turned her gaze away, hiding the storm in her eyes. My heart beat. What troubles your spirit? Okoro asked, stepping closer, sensing the weight on her soul. His eyes, sharp as an eagle's, searched hers for answers. Tears welled up in Oloma's eyes, brimming until they fell freely down her cheeks. Her lips trembled as she whispered words she had carried in her heart like a forbidden burden. Maybe you should just remarry, she said, her voice breaking like dry twigs underfoot. You deserve children, Okoro. Who will call you father? Who will carry your name when you are gone? Just listen to your mother's advice. Okoro stiffened, anger flashing across his face like lightning ripping through a dark sky. His hands clenched into fists, his hunter's heart raging at the thought. What are you saying, Oloma? He thundered. My husband, she replied, her sobs choking her words. Maybe if you remarry, I too may know the joy of holding children. Maybe the woman you marry will bring us good fortune. Mama says she has found someone for you. A woman who can give you sons and daughters. She says her bones ache to hold grandchildren before she returns to the ancestors. Please, my husband, consider her words. Okoro's voice rose, fierce but trembling with hurt. "And what of you, Oloma? What has Mama told you to put such poison in your mouth? Do I look like a man starved of love? Do I look like a man crying for children? The heart chooses its owner, and mine has chosen you. Must I now cast you away because seasons have passed without fruit? Does a barren tree cease to give shade?" He stepped closer, his voice softening though his spirit blazed. "Children will come when they are destined to come. You know I love you. Why do you wish me to bring in another woman? I have chosen you, Oloma, you and no other. I cannot share my heart. I cannot love another. Even if it takes eternity, I will wait with you." At those words, Oloma broke down, her tears flowing freely. She clutched her wrapper tightly as though trying to hold together her breaking soul. "I don't deserve you," she whispered. "I am barren, maybe cursed. The villagers call me witch, say I have bewitched you, say you are blinded and cannot see reason. But I see the truth, Okoro. I have chained you to my shame. Please, let me go. Take another wife, so I may finally know peace. Mama has assured me this woman will bring good fortune. Please, Okoro, 10 years is long enough. You have endured too much." Okoro's chest heaved, his breath sharp, but his eyes burned with an unyielding flame. He lifted her chin with his calloused fingers and looked deep into her tear-soaked eyes. "I am the man of this house," he said, voice steady as stone. "This is my decision, not yours, not Mama's, not the villagers. Let the tongues wag. Let the gossips spit their venom. Love is not measured by the cry of a child, but by the strength of two hearts that refuse to let go. You are my wife. My destiny is tied to you. Now wipe your tears and bring me my food. Enough of this talk." His words carried the weight of mountains, and in that moment, the air grew heavy with both sorrow and hope. For love, like the ancient baobab, may stand scarred by storms, yet it refuses to fall. Night fell heavy upon the village of Iya, a night so still that even the crickets dared not chirp. The moon hung pale and watchful, as though it too waited for something unspeakable. In one corner of the village, inside a humble hut where love and sorrow coexisted, Oloma wiped the tears that streamed from her eyes. They glistened like broken pearls under the glow of the hearth fire. With weary steps, she rose, her body trembling as though weighed down by invisible chains. Without a word, she went inside to prepare her husband's meal, her silence louder than any cry. Moments later, she emerged with a calabash of food, its warm steam rising like an offering to the heavens. She set it gently before her husband, Okoro, the proud hunter whose eyes now carried both affection and unanswered questions. They ate together in silence, the sound of chewing echoing in the emptiness like drums of war. No words passed between them, yet their silence was heavy, an unspoken dialogue of pain, patience, and love caught between duty and despair. But silence, like a shadow, always precedes the storm. The next day, the scene shifted to the king's palace, where the air trembled with unease. The towering pillars of carved wood seemed to groan under the weight of destiny. Elders sat in a semicircle, their faces etched with the wisdom of age and the fear of what they did not yet understand. At the center, the seer entered with slow, deliberate steps. His staff struck the earthen floor with each stride, echoing like thunderclaps in the chamber of power. He bowed low before the king. "Igwe, I greet you. May you live long," the seer intoned, his voice deep, carrying the resonance of centuries. The king, adorned in lion mane regalia, raised his hand. His voice was calm, but laced with tension. "You are welcome, Wise one, tell us the message from the gods. The seer closed his eyes, as though peering beyond the veil of the living. Then he spoke with fire in his words. My king, be warned. Calamity is about to befall this kingdom. I see darkness, a darkness that will swallow laughter, a silence that will devour music. The gods are restless. The king leaned forward, confusion etched upon his royal brow. Wise one, I do not understand. What do you mean by calamity and darkness? Speak in a language we can understand. The seer's eyes blazed like embers. His words fell heavy with adage. The toad does not run in the daytime, except something is chasing it. There is no smoke without fire. The gods have spoken. Let every man examine himself. With that, he struck his staff upon the ground once more and turned to leave, his robe swaying like the wings of a departing vulture. He vanished into the sunlight, leaving the king and his council drowning in confusion. The air grew heavier in his absence, for the unknown is heavier than any truth. 6 marked days passed, days in which destiny began to weave its silent web. On that 6th day, 2 things happened. The gods smiled upon Okoro and Oloma. At last her womb quickened with life. A spark of joy ignited in their home, for a child was coming, a child they thought they might never know. Yet on that very same day, the skies withheld their gift. The rain ceased. The sun scorched the land mercilessly. Crops withered, streams shrank into dust, and thirst gripped both man and beast. Desperation drove the king to summon the goddess of rain, Ezin, to explain this cruel silence of the heavens. My king, Ezin bowed, her voice honeyed yet trembling. The gods are silent. I do not know why they refuse to speak. The king's voice cracked like a whip. Do something, priestess! Our crops are dying, our streams are gone, our children thirst to death. Ezin spread her hands helplessly. My king, for 6 marked days I have consulted the gods. They have refused to answer. There is nothing more I can do but wait. But the truth was darker than her words. The gods had indeed grown silent, not from ignorance, but from judgment. Ezin, once chosen to intercede for the people, had become the source of their misery. In secret, she compelled young men with spells, dragging them into her bed against their will. She extorted farmers, taking from their meager harvests, leaving families to starve. The one who was meant to shield the people had become their tormentor. When the shepherd devours the flock, whispered the wind, the gods turn away. Thus, in her corruption, the gods closed their ears to her cries, and the skies withheld their rain. 6 more market days passed. The land cracked under drought, yet in the humble hut of Okoro and Oloma, joy blossomed. 9 months later, Oloma delivered a bouncing baby girl, her cries piercing the night like a song of victory. They named her Blessing, for indeed she was, a blessing to her parents, a blessing to a home once cursed, a blessing that made mockers bow their heads in shame. Neighbors who once spat insults now came with gifts, dancing and rejoicing. But in life, joy often walks hand in hand with sorrow. Barely 3 moons after Blessing's birth, the laughter turned into wailing. Oloma, the woman whose love had endured mockery, the woman who had prayed for this child, fell grievously ill. Her body, once radiant, became frail. Her eyes dimmed like dying coals, and one cold morning, her breath ceased. She crossed into the land of ancestors, leaving behind her husband and the child she had longed for. Mr. Okoro wept bitterly, his cries shaking the very earth as though he sought to awaken the gods themselves. By his wife's grave, He lay for days, his tears watering the soil, his voice hoarse from questioning heaven. "Why, O gods?" he roared. "Why take the mother and leave the child? Why give joy with one hand and snatch it with the other?" But the wind gave no answer. The sky remained mute. Now he was alone, alone with his grief, alone with the tiny child that needed him. Yet he rose, for duty is the fire that forces even broken men to stand. He strapped the child to his back as he hunted the lion. He carried her as he tilled the stubborn earth. The villagers pitied him, but they also marveled. For though sorrow broke his heart, love kept him alive. And so the story of Okoro and Blessing began, woven with tears, bound by destiny, and shadowed by the silence of the gods. And so Okoro became both father and mother. He strapped the baby to his back as he fetched water from faraway streams. Villagers pitied him, yet they also marveled at his strength. "A father's love," they whispered, "is like the Iroko tree, deep-rooted, unyielding." 6 years passed. Blessing grew into a gentle child, loved by all for her obedience and respect. But unknown to the villagers, she was touched by destiny. Dreams haunted her nights, visions of shrines, of staffs, of white garments, of rain summoned by her hand. She would wake, trembling, whispering to her father of the things she saw. Okoro listened, torn between wonder and fear. Could this child be chosen by the gods? And then came the day when destiny revealed itself. Okoro, weary from thirst and years of labor, sat outside sharpening his cutlass. His throat ached with dryness, his body weak from days without water. Suddenly his sight blurred, his body gave way, and he collapsed. Blessing rushed out, terror in her eyes. She fell beside him, shaking his body, her cries tearing at the heavens. "Papa, wake up! Please, you cannot leave me. I have no mother, I cannot lose you too. Who will call me daughter? Who will I call father? Papa, please!" Her sobs filled the air, her small hands gripping his lifeless frame. In her desperation, she lifted her eyes to the skies. "Gods of the land, gods of my forefathers, if you can hear me now. Do not let my father die, for he is all I have. You have watched us suffer, you have seen me beg for rain. If you are alive, answer me now. Let the rain fall." Her voice cracked the heavens. Suddenly the clouds thickened, rolling like an army. The wind howled, tearing leaves from trees, scattering goats and chickens, sending villagers running in fear. Thunder roared, lightning split the skies, and then rain. Heavy, violent, cleansing rain. The people danced, cried, lifted their arms to the sky. "The gods have returned," they shouted. The king marveled, though unease coiled in his heart. For the rain fell not because of the priestess, but because of a child. Blessing, trembling, caught a calabash of rainwater and ran to her father. She pressed it to his lips. The water touched him like life itself. His chest rose, his eyes opened. "My child, what happened? Has the mercy of the gods returned?" "Papa, I could not watch you die," she whispered, her voice shaking but carrying the weight of a soul far older than her 6 tender years. "Remember the strange dreams I always told you about? The ones I did not understand? Today, they came alive. I lifted my hands to the heavens. I cried out with a voice born of fear, of desperation, of love, and the gods, they answered me. The clouds broke, the rain fell. But look, Papa, the rain did not last long. It came like a sigh, then vanished into silence again. I do not know what the gods intend for me." Her words hung in the air like smoke from sacred fire, fragile yet heavy with mystery. Okoro, who only moments ago felt the cold hands of death dragging him into darkness, His chest swelled with the weight of revelation. "My child. Oh, my daughter," he whispered hoarsely, his voice breaking with emotion. "You are indeed what your name proclaims. A blessing. You are more than the fruit of my loins. You are a gift to this land. Do you not see? This act confirms what I always feared to believe. You hold power, my child, a sacred gift carried from the womb into the living world. You are destined, anointed by the gods themselves, to be successor to the goddess of rain." Blessing's brow furrowed, her lips quivering as confusion shadowed her innocence. "Power, Papa?" "What do you mean?" I only cried out." Okoro's eyes burned with conviction. "No, my daughter. The cry of a mortal cannot move the heavens. For 6 years, not a single drop has touched this soil. Crops have withered into dust, streams have become bones of rivers. Children cry with cracked lips, mothers bury sons, fathers bury wives. Even you, my daughter, you were born into this famine of the skies, after your mother was stolen by death. But today, you summoned the heavens. Today, the gods listened to you. This power must not be hidden. It must be groomed. We must tell the king. For you are not just my child, Blessing. You are the light this kingdom has waited for." His words, like molten iron, seared themselves into her young heart. Blessing's eyes darted to the heavens, wide, unsettled. Was she chosen? Was she cursed? The questions beat inside her skull like drums of confusion. She whispered, almost to herself, "Does this mean I can summon the rain, Papa? Just as the goddess of rain does?" "Yes, my daughter," Okoro said with a solemn nod, his voice steady, resolute. "And even more, you are greater than you know. The gods hide their treasures in clay, but they reveal them in fire, and you are fire." Far away at the sacred dwelling of Azine, the goddess of rain, another storm brewed, not of clouds, but of dread. She sat rigid, her body a trembling vessel of fear, her face bathed in a cold sweat. Her once proud spirit wavered like a dying flame. She had not summoned this rain, she could not. Time and again she had raised her voice, chanted her incantations, invoked the names of the ancestors, but silence. The gods turned deaf ears to her. Her heart quaked, for she knew, deep within, that the silence of the gods is louder than thunder. Fury mixed with terror as she stumbled toward her sacred mirror, her magic pool of truth. She gazed into its shimmering depths, seeking answers. Her voice cracked as she muttered, "Why? Why did the rain fall without me? Why have the gods abandoned me?" But the mirror reflected more than water. It reflected guilt. Her mind, no longer shielded, replayed her sins. The young men she compelled into her hut, their eyes vacant under her spells, their innocence stolen for her fleshly hunger. The farmers she stripped of their meager harvests, leaving their children to starve. She remembered the cries of mothers, the curses of fathers, the silence of dying babies. And with every memory, the silence of the gods grew heavier upon her chest. "The gods! They have turned against me!" she gasped, her voice cracking with a mixture of fear and denial. "But why now? Why not before?" Her eyes widened suddenly as the mirror rippled, not with her reflection, but with a vision. A child, clad in white, standing beneath storm clouds, staff in hand, summoning rain not for herself, but for her people. Her face contorted in horror as she realized the truth. "The air," she whispered, clutching her chest as her heart hammered wildly. "A new air has risen." And in that moment, Azine's fear became fury, for she knew the words of the ancients.
When a tree grows taller than the Iroko must either bow or fall. When a seed begins to sprout, the earth itself must make way. Such was the burden in Mr. Okoro's chest as he looked into the eyes of his young daughter, a child carrying the mystery of the gods. Okoro's voice was steady, though his heart pounded like distant drums. Rise, child. We must let the king know of this precious gift of yours. His hand trembled slightly as he lifted her up, not from weakness, but from the awe of destiny resting in her small frame. The path to truth is never smooth. The bush always hides the serpent. And so father and daughter walked the winding forest path toward the king's palace. The sun filtered through the trees, but shadows whispered of unseen eyes. Then suddenly, Azen appeared, blocking their way. Her staff gleamed like fire caught in wood, her eyes blazing with fury. Jealousy is a fire that consumes its own pot before burning another's, the elders say. And here stood Azen, consumed by a fear she could not silence. Blessing clutched her father's arm, her heartbeat loud in her ears. Okoro stepped before her protectively, his eyes narrowing with both fear and defiance. And so, upon that bushy path, destiny stood between a father, his daughter, and a goddess unwilling to be replaced. The first sparks of war between gift and power had begun. The wind carried a whisper that only the ancestors could hear, a warning, a lament, a secret wrapped in the scent of scorched earth. In the heart of the sacred forest, where the sun's rays barely pierced the canopy, anger brewed like a storm ready to tear the world asunder. When the river swells, even the strongest stone bends, the elders had said. But some stones refuse to bend, even when the heavens themselves rise against them. Azen's eyes glinted with a darkness that had nothing to do with night. It was fury incarnate, the kind that ages the soul before the body feels a day's wear. And in the clearing before her, the child, Blessing, stood unwavering, small but resolute, like a flame daring the wind. Azen's voice, sharp and venomous, sliced through the tension in the air. I will not let you go see the king. I will not let you succeed me. Her hands rose, fingers clutching the gnarled staff that hummed with ancient power, the very air bending to its will. Sparks of fire licked the ground, and the scent of burnt earth filled the nostrils of all who dared watch. In every heart, fear is a shadow. But when anger walks in, it drags the shadow into the open, and even the bravest tremble. Azen, once a guardian of the rains, now stood betrayed by her own mortality, and bitterness was her only companion. Blessing stepped forward, eyes wide but steady, her small frame radiating courage that belied her years. You cannot kill my parent, the only one I have in this whole world who will take care of me. What have I done to you that you want to take away my father? What have I done to you? What wrong have I done? Is it my fault that I am gifted? Did I ask for the powers that I have? Why do you want to make me an orphan? The wisdom of the elders speaks true. A child's courage is the whisper of the ancestors. And in her voice, defiance danced like lightning across a storm-dark sky. She was not just a girl, she was hope incarnate. Azena's lips curled into a cruel smile. The only way I will let you pass, she hissed, is if you go back. Yes, if you go back and forget about all this. Tell your father that the both of you should return to your heart, because if you insist on going forward, I will consume you and your father. Anger is a fire that knows no reason. And yet, even as she threatened, the roots of wisdom in the earth trembled beneath her. In the land of the gods, no force is ever truly lost, only tested. Azen's laughter rang like broken bells. Mr. Okoro, leave my daughter alone. Don't touch her. Don't touch my daughter. The forest itself seemed to recoil at her fury, leaves shivering in anticipation. In that heartbeat of silence, Blessing moved. Her tiny hands lifted, glowing with an aura that shimmered like liquid sunlight. She waged the fire back toward Ezen, not with hatred, but with the fierce protective love of a child defending her parent. In the dance of fire, one sees the truth of hearts. Even the smallest hand can guide the greatest storm, the elders always said. And Blessing, standing firm, channeled the wisdom of generations in that single act. The fire, once a weapon of destruction, rebounded with a brilliance that seemed to carve Ezen from the world itself. A scream, a flash, and then silence. Ezen disappeared into the ether, leaving only the faint scent of ash and sorrow. Breathing heavily, Blessing extended her hand to her father. Sun, long hidden, peeked through the canopy, painting their path in gold. When they arrived at the king's palace, the air was thick with anticipation and awe. Mr. Okoro bowed, his voice steady though his heart still raced. "Igwe, may you live long." The king turned, eyes like rivers reflecting centuries of wisdom. "Oh, Mr. Okoro, how are you doing?" "Hope you brought bushmeat for me. This is why you came to see me today." "Hope all is well." Mr. Okoro knelt low, his forehead almost kissing the smooth earthen floor of the palace. His voice trembled, not from fear of the throne, but from the weight of the truth he carried. "Don't worry, my king. Once I have checked my traps, I will definitely get something for you." The king's lips curved into a knowing smile, his eyes glinting like a lion watching the plains. "Okay, Mr. Okoro. I know you to be a man of your word. So what brings you to my palace today?" In the stillness of that moment, even the drums outside the palace seemed to pause, waiting for the revelation of a secret wrapped in both fear and wonder. Okoro raised his head, his face worn with both pride and sorrow. His voice wavered as he began. "My king, my daughter is gifted. I found out that she has gifted powers. The other day, when I lost consciousness and fell to the ground, I collapsed. I almost died. She told me that when she came out from the hut, she met me lying on the ground, unconscious. She was so afraid. She didn't want me to die, as I am her only surviving parent. And so she lifted her eyes and her hands to the clouds, and she called upon the gods of our land. She commanded the rain to fall, and it obeyed her." The king's eyes widened slightly, his silence speaking louder than words. Okoro pressed on, his voice hushed, as if confessing a mystery too heavy for one man's chest. "She has also been telling me about her strange dreams, but I did not understand until what happened 2 days ago. My king, this is why we came to your palace. In the hearts of men, fear and pride are twins that seldom agree." Okoro felt both, for in the gift of a child lay both salvation and danger. The king leaned back on his stool, his hand stroking his bearded chin as wisdom flickered in his gaze. His voice rolled like distant thunder. "Mr. Okoro, you've done well. Indeed, you are a blessed man. The gods have smiled on you greatly. Your child is not just a child, she is a gifted child. For a long time, there has been no rain. I was asking myself, how come the rain that fell 2 days ago? I thought maybe it was Ezen, the goddess of rain, who summoned it. I thought perhaps the gods had finally forgiven us for whatever sin we committed before them. I never knew this miracle happened because of your daughter." A pause hung heavy in the air before the king added softly, almost reverently, "Don't worry. We shall groom your daughter, Mr. Okoro." But Okoro's chest heaved as if carrying a stone. His voice broke, trembling with the weight of fear. "My king, on our way coming here, we were stopped by Ezen along a bushy path. She wanted to kill me and my daughter. She raised her staff to destroy us. If not that my daughter, Blessing, came to our rescue, we would have been dead by now." The truth fell like a stone into a still pond, and the ripples shook the palace walls. To speak the name of Azen with dread was to admit the storm had already entered the village. "She fears," Okoro continued, tears stinging his eyes, "that my daughter is going to succeed her while she is still alive. She does not want that. My king, I am afraid. Inasmuch as I am happy that my child is gifted, I fear for her life. For this gift that she has, it is not just for her, not just for me, but for all of us." Evening had scarcely withdrawn its veil when a storm of destiny gathered at the palace of the Igwe. The air itself seemed to hold its breath, heavy with whispers of judgment. The king sat tall upon his throne, his eyes fierce with the authority of generations. As the drum of fate echoed silently in the hearts of all, one truth became clear. When justice calls, even the mighty must answer. The Igwe's voice rolled through the hall like thunder across a dry plain. He commanded his guards, "Go, summon Azen at once." Then he turned to the town crier, his tone sharp, decisive. "Go through the village, beat your gong, and tell every man, woman, and child to gather here immediately. There is truth that must be laid bare before all." The guards bowed low and vanished like shadows into the night, while the crier's voice soon rose beyond the palace walls, the iron clang of his gong cutting through the still air. "Oyez, oyez, oyez, all ye sons and daughters of the land, gather at the king's palace. The Igwe has a word for the people." Half an hour later, the great courtyard of the palace throbbed with life. Men with dust still on their feet from the farms, women with baskets still on their heads, children with wide, curious eyes, all pressed together, waiting. A murmur ran through the crowd like a restless river, until silence fell when the guards returned, leading Azen. She walked in with her staff clutched tightly, her posture proud yet her face carved with fury. Her presence was like a storm cloud, darkening the horizon. The king rose. His gaze pierced through the gathering, landing squarely on her. "Azen," his voice thundered, "is it true?" While Mr. Okoro and his daughter walked the path of peace to my palace, you ambushed them, seeking to end their lives. The crowd gasped, all eyes turning to the woman once revered as the goddess of rain. For a heartbeat, her silence screamed louder than thunder. Then fury erupted from her like flames from a dying fire. "I will not allow anybody. No man born of a woman will succeed me while I yet live. Never!" Her voice cracked with madness, and the ground itself seemed to tremble with her rage. A hush fell until the voice of reason pierced the storm. Mr. Okoro stepped forward, his voice breaking with emotion. "But why, Azen? Why do you wish to make a child an orphan? Why do you seek the blood of innocence? What has Blessing done to you? Did she beg the gods for power? Is her gift not a blessing to us all? You should rejoice, for to train another is to live twice. Why then do you hunger for her life?" His words struck the crowd like arrows of truth, many nodding in sorrowful agreement. But Azeni's eyes flared with defiance. "My king!" she spat. "Nobody will succeed me. No child, no man, no one shall take what is mine while I draw breath." The Igwe's eyes narrowed, heavy with both grief and wrath. His voice, calm yet edged with iron, carried across the courtyard. "Azen, do you think your secrets are hidden from me? The eyes of the throne see farther than you imagine. I know of the spells you cast on our young men, dragging them to your hut to satisfy your cravings. I know of the farmers whose harvests you seized, their sweat feeding your greed. I know of the pain you caused the very people you were chosen to protect. Tell me, Azen, what spirit has led you astray? Perhaps this is why the gods no longer answer your cries. Perhaps this is why the rains no longer heed your call." The crowd gasped again, voices rising like waves. Mothers clutched their children. Men shook their heads in bitter shame, and for the first time, Ezen faltered. Her face flushed, a storm of rage and shame battling in her eyes. But pride held her tongue, and she screamed, "Over my dead body, I will not let anyone succeed me!" The king's gaze hardened, his voice final, unyielding. "So be it, Ezen. Since you resist the will of the gods, since you defy truth and seek to drown innocence in blood, this is what we shall do." And with those words, the palace fell into a silence so deep it felt as though even the stars leaned closer to hear the judgment of the king. "He who fights against destiny digs his own grave," an elder whispered, as the fate of a people hung in the balance. The sky was heavy, swollen with silence, as if the heavens themselves leaned down to witness the verdict of men. The villagers stood shoulder to shoulder in the king's courtyard, hearts pounding like war drums, eyes fixed upon the moment that would decide the fate of their land. The Igwe rose from his throne, his voice carrying the weight of truth and judgment. "Ezen," he declared, "if you can summon the rain and the rain comes falling, you shall remain the goddess of rain. Blessing will only succeed you when you pass on. But if you cannot summon the rain, and the child calls it forth, then the mantle will pass to her. Let the gods themselves speak." A murmur rippled through the people. An old man whispered, "When truth wrestles with pride, only the gods can separate them." Ezen's heart thundered in her chest. To her, the king's words were poison. "A child will not succeed me," she muttered under her breath, her pride burning hotter than the sun on barren soil. She stepped forward, clutching her staff like a serpent ready to strike. Her eyes closed, and her lips trembled with ancient incantations. She stamped her staff, chanted louder, and waved her arms to the heavens. But the skies remained mute. Not a drop, not even a whisper of wind answered her desperate cries. Her voice cracked. Sweat trickled down her brow. She tried again, harder, faster, pouring her anger into every word, but the clouds mocked her with silence. Murmurs grew into whispers, whispers into pity. Her own people were watching her defeat. Fury consumed her, and her staff trembled in her hand. The king turned, his gaze settling on the small girl who stood barefoot upon the earth, her eyes wide but unshaken. "Now, blessing," he said softly, "call upon the gods, if indeed they dwell with you." The crowd parted as the little child stepped forward. The torchlight flickered against her round face, innocent yet glowing with something divine. She lifted her tiny hands and her eyes rose to the heavens, her voice steady though her frame was fragile. "God of my forefathers, God of this land, the true essence of my life, the one who kept me alive, the one who did not let me become an orphan, I call upon you this day. Answer your child. Let the rain fall." Her words were simple, but they rang like sacred thunder across the courtyard. Then it happened. A deep rumble rolled across the heavens. The skies split with lightning. Thunder roared as if the gods themselves answered the cry of a child. Then came the rain, first in drops, then in torrents, a mighty flood crashing upon the thirsty earth. The villagers screamed, wept, and danced. Children opened their mouths to the sky. Farmers raised their hands, knowing their crops would live again. The rivers would swell, the streams would sing once more. But under the rain, Ezen's rage twisted into madness. Her eyes, red with envy, burned hotter than the fire she conjured. "She will not take my place," she hissed. Lifting her staff to the heavens, she summoned flames that licked the sky. Fire crackled, wild and deadly, and she hurled it at the unsuspecting child. Blessing froze, unaware of the danger, until a whisper within her spirit cried, "Look forward." Her eyes shot open, and she saw death racing toward her. With instinct born not of flesh but of divinity, she stretched out her palm. The fire halted, swirling against her hand, its heat blazing yet unable to touch her. Her small voice rang out, firm and unyielding. "You will not kill me. I will not die by your hands. I have not wronged you. Gods of my forefathers, arise and fight for me." With one motion, she turned the fire back upon its sender. The flames roared, struck Azen, and consumed her. She screamed as her body dissolved into smoke and ash, her spirit scattered to the wind. The staff fell, splintering upon the ground. Silence fell for a heartbeat. Then the people erupted. They wept, they sang, they knelt before the little girl. The king himself stood, tears hidden in his beard, and proclaimed, "Behold, the gods have chosen. This child is not a curse but a blessing indeed. She shall be the next priestess, the true goddess of rain." The rain poured harder, baptizing the land in rebirth. Crops would rise, rivers would swell, and hope would live again. And so it was that blessing, the child once doubted, became the vessel of the gods. When the gods choose a vessel, no hand of man can overturn it, the elders said. And the people rejoiced, for indeed she was not just a child, she was the blessing of the land.